package? I'm looking at it. I don't see it.
I believe SAV had.
Yeah, it looks like they did.
Yeah.
Got something.
Yeah. I didn't pull it because we're gonna have her on our show next week. But I think for me, it's about the fact that they're misrepresenting what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're missing a piece. Maybe like they're just not understanding that the real question is why was she asked not to speak anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why was she out of order? You guys aren't capturing that. Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Happy July 13th. Glad to have you on board on this Thursday morning.
Yes, thanks for tuning in. And, you know, Bill, the story with Beth Madroni has definitely blown up.
It sure has. So all of a sudden, after she's gone national, and of course we had it here exclusively a couple of days ago, suddenly the local news media has decided to jump on the bandwagon, and they missed most of the trolley.
Yeah, I think the question they're not asking, Bill, is why was she asked to sit down when her time was not up? They're also making it sound like she refused to leave the podium when her time was up. That is not what happened. She was only about 50 seconds to a minute in of her 3-minute allotment when they, ruled her out of order for mentioning the grand jury case against Billy Wooten and the requirements that they set upon him to give her some documents.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't mention anything about that. And there, something else that really bothered me was, they don't have to let people speak in these public meetings. And to me, that I just don't.
When you're public,
I don't know how that's possible. You guys serve the people. You're elected by the people, and our tax money pays for you to sit in those seats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you should be allowed to speak, and you should be given your full 3 minutes. Unless you get out of hand, you get obscene, start making accusations or anything of that nature. And Beth doesn't do that, and we know her personally. And also that they're trying to say that there's some sort of Georgia law that says that people aren't allowed to speak. Well, if that's the case, then we need to change the law.
Yeah. In one of the articles yesterday that I read from one of the outlets here, it said something, there is nothing in the Georgia law that requires them to allow the public to speak at these meetings, which I just don't agree with, Bill. I think our First Amendment should be, we should be allowed to speak at any of these public meetings. Otherwise, they would be closed door meetings. Yeah. Am I right?
Oh yeah, yeah. You have the closed door session, your executive session and things of that nature. But the thing is that you need to the laws need to be reflective. Sometimes we assume when laws are passed that people understand. It's just understood. Just like when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, he put these things. We consider these self-evident. You should know this. That I'm having to write this down, but I really shouldn't because this should be self-evident.
And I think the Constitution covers freedom of speech, and that means at these meetings. So
that was one of the first. In fact, that's the First Amendment, as a matter of fact. Yeah, they put that in there for a reason.
One of the most important things, right? So I think that the news media here, number one, they weren't there. And number two, I think that they aren't asking the right question.
Mm-hmm.
Why was she called out of order? And that question was not asked to Mr. Mahoney, who is the chair of the board. And I think that is the question. Why were you guys cutting off her speech? Mm-hmm. She was allowed 3 minutes. And then when she started talking, 50 seconds in, you ruled her out of order. Why? Because the incident never would have happened if they would have allowed her to just speak.
Exactly.
Beth is a great public speaker. She times out her speeches, and she very professional. One of the most professional people I've ever met, even in a personal setting.
Right.
So I don't understand. Like, it just escalated way beyond where it should have, and I'm just really disappointed that they are trying to make it seem like Beth was really at fault when she really was not.
Yeah. So this, in fact, one WSAV, they're on your side.
I bet Beth feels that.
Yeah, was doing the story. They said that in the video, Beth was one of 15 people at the meeting who made public comments to the board. One of 15. So if you're not allowed to speak, why were 15 people allowed to speak? WTOC got that wrong, which is, nothing unusual there. But I happen to be good friends with Dawn Baker and several other people at WTOC. Had them on my radio show over the years, and they were our television partner for a number of years until just recently. And I sent a text message to Dawn last night, and I said, the story is inaccurate that you're running. That Beth was allowed to speak and that she was called out of order, but because she was quoting grand jury stuff that they said was private information. Said that wasn't private information. She was quoting public. She doesn't have access to the private deliberation. Yeah, so she was quoting what was public record already. There was nothing. She wasn't revealing any top secret information here. And Dawn immediately wrote me back and said, I'll look into it and let me know if she would like to do an interview. Could we do an interview with her? And I said, I'd be glad to set it up. So we have that part. And I didn't see WJCL coverage if they had it.
I haven't seen anything from them either. But I will say the other thing is they also act like they did us a favor for allowing us to speak. That's the other thing that bothers me very much about this bill. Like, we allowed you peasants to speak at our meeting. We only have an hour a month, and you guys are interrupting that time. That's what it sounded like to me. And maybe, I could be a little bit mistaken because there is a lot of, I was there. I do know Beth personally, and what they did was wrong. And so I do feel as though they're making it sound like we don't have to let you guys speak if we don't want you to. So we have the power. You guys better obey us, or we'll just cut off your right to speak at these meetings, and you won't be heard.
Yeah, we don't want to hear from the hoi polloi. We're up here. We're top executives here. We are county leaders, and we don't need to. We don't need to hear from you folks. We know what we're doing. So we're hearing from teachers these days, and teachers
we're the
unions.
Expert.
Yeah, we're the experts. We need to be in charge of your kids. You don't know diddly. We know everything.
Yep. Well, and we have some comments here. I think that this has touched a nerve with our audience. Lizzie Warren says, Board of Elections got comfortable working without citizen oversight. I think that's exactly what happened. They're not used to having a crowd there. There were 56 people in attendance.
That's a bunch.
Yes, it is. For a meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Trish Brown from the Board of Elections is using her personal page to unprofessionally discuss the situation. That is very interesting. I did see that. I think that that's unprofessional, but, based on their actions, I'm not sure that I expect any more than that. Steve Statton says Savannah is turning into a junior LA. Yes.
Oh gosh, it's not that bad.
Yeah. This is just the first incident. I'm hoping that we get a statement from them. The statement that they released was not great. I can read that in a minute. Mary McCann Highbreeder said, they forgot they actually work for We the People. You're absolutely right. And Steve says, Beth is a fighter. Did you see her on Steve Bannon? Yes, I did.
In fact, we showed it to you yesterday.
Yes. And she has been on, I think she's done so much press. She'll be with us next week. But she's done a lot of press. And, I reached out to her to check on her because watching a video of being humiliated like that over and over again as you do this press circuit, I can't imagine what that does for someone. And what they did to Beth was humiliating.
It was. It was not necessary. This is a petite woman. It had two male police officers who came up, and they could have escorted her out easily without having to pick her up, literally pick her up. And she even said during the video, that you could see from the camp, from the body cam, said, "You're hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
Put me down."
Yep, and they did not.
No,
and
they didn't until they got her outside.
Well, that's the other thing. She also the one thing that Steve Bannon did say that like really resonated with me is she had to protect her own modesty.
Mm-hmm.
She was wearing a skirt.
She was wearing a skirt. Yeah,
like there's no excuse for treating a woman like this. That, like I said, she's not threatening. She was just asking, "Why are you calling me out of order? Why can't I not finish my speech?" And they wouldn't answer her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they also created the situation, and I don't know what I would have done in that situation if they had told me I had to quit speaking and that, you need to sit down. It's like, well,
I'd
I'm
pay
only
good
50
money
seconds
to
in.
see
Yeah.
that, though.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like you're in shock. So you do get in that defensive mode of like, what's going on here? Like,
exactly.
I'm a U.S. citizen. I've never been in trouble with the law. Like Beth, she's never been in trouble with anything, no. Right? But she is a fighter.
Yeah.
And,
shouldn't have 50 outstanding traffic tickets.
No.
No felony charges. She hasn't spent a night in jail. She's a model citizen and a pillar of this community, and she needs to be treated as such. And with that respect, they should be treating everybody with respect, unless, of course, they do get out of hand, calling names and doing that. That's a different story entirely.
Yeah, and the police basically said we could have arrested her, but we didn't. So they basically did her a favor there too. So yeah, well, I'm not sure.
How nice.
Yeah, I cannot understand why we are having these conversations across the country.
Isn't that like a mugger saying he was nice because he let me keep my watch?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was, I just, and Beth is not as young as she looks. That's what Lizzie says to us this morning. And Steve Stanton says, hopefully Beth will sue the county. Then you will find out through discovery that they were laying in wait for her. I mean, I think she has a case here.
I do too.
Her First Amendment rights were violated. And, I think these public officials think they have all this power when really the power is granted to you by the people. And we're allowed to have opinions and we're allowed to come to those meetings and let you know how we're feeling about things. I mean, you do work for us.
Yeah. It's interesting about people's own little fiefdom. When they come up with this, and it goes back to the great quote. Abraham Lincoln had so many great quotes. It's hard to believe that one guy could, was spewing all the great knowledge came from this man, but flowed like a fountain. And one of them was, if you want to see someone's true power, reveal someone's true power, give or true self, personality, give them power. And I can remember a young man who worked with us when I was at WJCL years ago as a reporter. We had an opening for news director, and everybody loved this guy. Great reporter, did great work, went above and beyond. And when the position for news director came open, we said, I'll use a different name. It's Freddie. Mm-hmm. Freddie's the guy. When he became news director, suddenly it was Sieg Heil. I mean, it was, to stress his authority. I guess he thought because he'd been, our colleague and buddy and rubbing shoulder to shoulder with us on news stories that suddenly he had to exercise his authority over us now that he was the boss. And suddenly this guy turned into a raving maniac. We finally took him out of the management finally took him out of the position about 9 months later. He came to blows with one of the reporters one time.
Yeah.
Because over a story. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I think when you really see who someone is when they have a little bit of power. Mm-hmm. And Trish Brown, when she took to her Facebook page, she said that this was basically a world star hip hop video, but about paper ballots, and that people missed the July fireworks and police escorting. So and then she says, see y'all August 14th. Get there early for good seats, and it's free. I mean, the other thing is one of the other elected officials referred to some of the comments more, what did he say? Are more appropriate for Jerry Springer. There was really... I'm sorry, Jerry Springer didn't have anything to do with elections or paper ballots, so I don't really know why that reference even came in, but what a terrible thing to say about people that you represent.
Did you ever see a Jerry Springer show?
Very entertaining.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it looked like it devolved into. That's a good analogy. This was
See, and I disagree. I don't think that Jerry Springer is the right terminology for what happened. Um, but
well, the
like I
fact that
said,
people come to fisticuffs and they can be get dragged off the set or anything like
yeah,
that. That's the reference there.
yeah. Well, I, I'm I am definitely not happy about what happened, and I'm I'm looking forward to seeing what Beth does with this because she is a fighter, and what they did was wrong.
Yeah, and I have complete faith in Jeff Hadley, great chief of our county police department, put together one of the best police departments I think in the country, and I think that he will judge this very fairly, and that disciplinary actions may be taken against those officers.
Yeah, and Lizzie Warren says Jerry Springer shows the condemnation he has for his constituents.
Hmm.
So, anywho, well, when we get back, talking to Travis Chance.
Yeah, you want to find out what to do with your money and what he's looking at right now as the future of the stock market and where you can do some investing. Coming up next. At Get Real America, we are focused on Savannah, but we'd like to hear from other communities as well. We have a lot in common.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes. Welcome back to Get Real America. Time once again to check in with our good buddy Travis Chance at CFG Wealth Management. Find out what's going on in the financial world. Good news, bad news, and warts and all. So, Travis, great to talk to you again. What's the latest? I understand we've got some good news on the horizon with any particular stocks or companies or whatever.
Bill, I am super pumped. Inflation has been something that obviously we've been battling for. You and I know that we've been battling it for close to 2.5 years.
Oh,
Basically,
yeah.
ever since we had COVID, it's just been astronomical. And what we now have started to see is, don't get me wrong, I've given them a lot of grief. I will still give them grief, but I'm going to pause for a moment and say inflation now, as of this morning, hit 3% on the CPI. It was 4.8% ex food and energy. Those numbers have come down dramatically. We were at 9% on on the CPI back in June of last year. We're now at 3. We're not where we want to be, but we're sure glad we aren't where we were. So I really think that that's going to give a lot of credence to what the Fed has done. I think one of their biggest tasks has not just been getting inflation under control with this last rate hike environment, but it's also been getting back some credibility, because
Mm-hmm.
they really dropped the ball coming out of COVID and talking about transitory. Well,
Right.
it wasn't, and we knew that, and they still kept saying that it was. They got a lot of egg on their face. I feel like they've been able to regain some of that credibility. I do think that's enough for the positive for them. For us, I think if they keep raising rates, there is a strong possibility, in my opinion, and a lot of the analysts we follow, there's a strong possibility we could do a soft landing and not actually go into recession. I know that most times yield inversions, or rate inversions, that usually telegraphs a recession. Not always, but most of the times it does. I do think we've got a different set of circumstances this time. We could avoid it if the Fed will recognize that they have done their job, right? The ball is rolling downhill. They don't need to push it anymore. It's going to continue to roll that way. And I think this quarter point coming up is a mistake. I think they're going to definitely raise a quarter point this month. They could raise another quarter in September. If they keep raising it, Bill, they've cracked it. They will break something. So it's one of those things where we're right at the edge of the cliff. We could stand here and view the Grand Canyon, or they can keep pushing us, and all of a sudden we're falling down the Grand Canyon. One's going to be very much enjoyable. The other one's going to be not so enjoyable. I think they're going to break something if they keep going, but if they were to stop right now, I do think that we have gotten inflation under control, and I think the economy could tolerate it where interest rates are right now for the time being.
Yeah, Travis, the old saying goes, "There's too much of a good thing," and that could certainly be the case here. And sometimes they just can't help themselves. Well, if a little did a good job, a lot may do more.
A lot's going to do a lot more. Yeah, I really think, and I'm you know me long enough, and you've known me long enough to know if I didn't truly believe it and wasn't convicted, I wouldn't tell you. I do think that we have seen an unprecedented period leading to another unprecedented period. We have got the ability to avoid this recession, but do the Fed governors have the capacity to get out of their own way and not be victims of their own hubris and think that they just know everything? Because they don't. They are really pushing the envelope. But you know what? They don't call Travis and ask what my opinion is before they raise interest rates. They don't care what Bill thinks. But common sense, we talked about it. It's a superpower. I think that they've been sitting on a bunch of kryptonite for the last couple of years. So.
Well, Travis, I think the important thing about you or going to any reliable financial investor is the way to go for people that just, as we have said many times in the past, just the day-to-day activity. Life gets in the way, and none of us, for the most part, have the time to keep track of all this on a daily basis like you do to make a living. And so where the pitfalls are, and we can go into investments that will continue to make us money, or at least to have a softer landing than those of us who try to do it ourselves.
Right. Well, I actually did a show not too long ago on my podcast, and actually my podcast, Navigating Your Retirement, it's on iTunes and Google Play as well. And I titled the show, "Never Underestimate Your Ability to Overestimate Your Ability." And sometimes, and that's not a shot across the bow, that's just a fact. Sometimes I feel like we read a few articles, we get a little bit of information, we really feel like we have a firm grasp on something, and maybe we're just scratching the surface. And retirement is not a dress rehearsal. It's a one-act play. It's very difficult to year after year after year avoid these pitfalls. And you're right. That's what our responsibility is to you and to our clients and to our listeners, is to try to make that path a little smoother if at all possible. Maybe make the IRS's pot a little less and make yours a little more.
Travis, it reminds me of the article I read one time about Mindy Rudolph, the great NBA official who actually wrote the rule book that the NBA uses even today, and said he was in a hotel lobby hearing some guys talk about going to a game that he was officiating that night. And one guy saying to another one, said, "Well, I really don't know that much about basketball, about the rules or anything, but I'll go with you to the game." And then afterward, the same guy was fussing at him for all the calls that he missed. And he was like, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. This is a guy who a couple hours before said he didn't know much about basketball.
Right. And Bill, that's the problem. A lot of the things in retirement that people, the what we think of as low hanging fruit, or what they may think of as low hanging fruit, a lot of times these little mistakes add up to big mistakes. You can make a few little mistakes, but you cannot make a lot of big ones. And that's why having some guidance actually pays huge dividends. Sometimes it's much easier and less expensive not to make the mistakes than it is to hire an advisor. So an advisor is, our job's to be a value to you. It's to help improve your situation and pay for ourselves through the things that you basically avoid, the
Yeah.
mistakes, the taxes, etc. So
Yeah. Errors of omission are better than errors of commission. So what are you encouraged about right now? I understand that there's something that you're kind of high on at this point.
I'll be honest with you. I know you're going to give me a little grief on it. I get it. I really do think the economy, and we are going to see continued slowdown, but I don't think the music stops. I think we've got an opportunity if we do see interest rates start to flatten out or even come down a little bit next year. I'm really encouraged about the market. I know everybody's concerned about going into now. There are pockets of the market. There are pockets that are going to get hammered because of rolling recession, impact on individual sectors. But there are pockets of the economy and pockets of the market that I think are worth taking participation in and buying. And obviously everybody's different. I can't give you a blanket recommendation, or the SEC would basically tan my hide. But I
Hmm.
can say there are a lot of opportunities. Interest rates have basically just been the death nail for most stocks over the last 12 months. Going into this earnings season, I don't think we're going to see misses as bad as we thought. And I do think for those who can either have someone do it for them or they can pick these individual sectors, I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunity. I think we're definitely going into the sun to the dawn, not into a further black of night. So the market, I think, is definitely for the right situation. I think that could be something someone could make a lot of progress in.
Well, if people want to follow your advice and get in touch with you, talk to you investing, and even no matter how late they've started, how do they do that?
Mhm. Absolutely. Bill, 877-269-0839, 877-269-0839, our office number, or they can visit us on the web, chancefinancial.com, send us a contact. We'll have one of our staff reach out, set an appointment, figure out what's convenient for them, and see if we can get them back on the right track to their retirement goals.
All right, sir. Enjoy your travels. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Travis.
Absolutely, Bill. Be safe. Thanks.
Yep, you too. We'll be right back. And great advice from Travis Chance, and he's always got a very positive, upbeat type thing where he's not saying, you better buy gold because the dollar's going down the Great White Porcelain Facility. You better divest get the money out of the stock market and put it here, there, elsewhere, because that's what we see on television for most of these people all the time from CNBC or whatever. They're always the
Doom and gloom.
yeah, the doom and gloom, and then all of a sudden, here comes William Devane telling you better talk to Rosalind Gold about getting some gold in your hands and in your safe. But there's nothing wrong with having some gold in your portfolio. But I know a lot of people who have who said that they regretted going to a gold IRA
Yeah.
because the gold market fluctuates just like the dollar market does.
Yeah.
And the fact that a lot of countries are thinking about going off the U.S. dollar right now to go to the yuan, the Chinese currency, is really, really dumb.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Our friend Steve Stanton says, "I can only hope you're right, Travis." Me too, because he does have a very positive outlook on things, and that's what we need right now,
Yeah,
for
he
sure.
looks down the road, and when we go in to talk to him, about every 3 months, when my wife and I go in for a session with him, he is my financial advisor, And there's some stuff that he told us, 3 months before, said, we're going to, I bought this for you and this, and this. And I would have said, God, I don't think I'd have ever bought that or whatever. And it did great. It's like, so he studies this, he knows his stuff. And he's offering, if you tell him that you heard it here, he's offering you a free session, no sales pitch, nothing. If you want to ask some questions, a free 20-minute session if you give him a call.
So check out Travis Chant. And when we get back, I'll be talking with Jay Ratliff.
We're taking to the air next. At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor and support your local community here at Get Real America.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like,
rather than my skills.
I want to be judged
by my political beliefs.
I want to get promoted
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up, I want to be offended
by my coworkers
and walk around the office
on eggshells
and have my words policed
by HR. Words like
grandfather,
peanut gallery,
long time no see,
no can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety and do workplace sensitivity training all day long.
When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder
just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist. I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
And welcome back to Get Real America. I have Jay with us today to talk about what's going on in the airline industry. Jay, there has been some interesting things happening. What is this I hear about a passenger being arrested?
Yeah, I love the term interesting because, yeah, it's the wild and wacky world of aviation, to be sure. And yeah, we had a passenger, well, we've had many passengers arrested, but we had one in Minneapolis this week. That is, the plane was pulling into the gate at Minneapolis. He opened up the emergency exit and jumped out onto the ramp and tried to run away. And this 44-year-old, people are thinking, okay, wait a minute. This flight came in, it landed. Passengers are getting off the plane. What in the world would cause somebody to jump out of one of the emergency exits and start running across the ramp? Well, it turns out that this guy was wanted by the police. Had several outstanding warrants. And I guess when the plane pulled up and parked, I don't know, maybe all the police officers were standing next to the window waving, because I think that may have been what freaked him out. It always amazes me when people think that they can get on an airplane and nobody's going to know about it. Well, you know, in the old days, well before your time, Brittany, you could get any name you wanted. My name is, my name's Bill Edwards. Put me on the plane, and they didn't check my ID, so I could be Bill Edwards for a day. So
wow.
Now that they check the identification, everything has to match. Oh yeah, it was always fun when you would have Mr. and Mrs. Jones flying, and Mrs. Jones looked about 40 years younger than Mr. Jones. But, you know, these days all that stuff is over because you have to have your identification. So this was I think, a 3 or 4 hour flight coming into Minneapolis. So if the police were monitoring inbound passengers, as they do, and this individual popped up on one of their screens, you know, have coffee, grab a donut, sorry guys, and then wait for the plane to pull in and arrest the individual when he gets off the flight.
Well, and I wonder where he thought he was going to run to that he would be safe in an airport, but
You know,
quite
that,
interesting.
that is such a good point, Brittany, because it's like you're trying to get away from people. So let me run into a casino. Nobody will see me here. Oh no, there's about 1,000 cameras that see you. Same thing at an airport. So it didn't take long, and I don't know. I guess we're giving credit to criminals as far as forethought on things. I guess the lack of that is what got them into the trouble they're in. So, but again, had the plane been in flight, the aircraft would have been pressurized. That door doesn't come open. But when you're at the gate and parked, then you have a situation where it's okay. You want the doors to open because if there's an emergency evacuation, you want everybody to get off the plane. This guy just kind of took off early. And the sad thing is that plane was scheduled to go out, and you know, it causes for delays of the future flight as the maintenance team puts that door back.
Right. And isn't that quite a drop from the door to the ground?
If you're going out of the door, or if you're going out over the wing, sliding down the wing, and you've got maybe a 6-foot drop.
Oh,
but look, if you're running from the police, I don't know that all that stuff is really processing. You're just trying to get away.
That's very true. That's very true.
Thank God I've never been in that scenario. I need to preface that. So I don't know how it feels. I'm just speculating here.
Yeah, well, you and me both, Jay. I've never been in that situation either. I don't plan on it. So, but there was also some cancellations of flights because of another door issue.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're talking about the American Airlines flight.
Yes.
You've been doing your homework. Good job. Yes. I'm going to brag on you to boot.
Please do.
What happened was this aircraft comes in for American Airlines. It's at the gate for American Airlines. It's going to be leaving in a little while to Philadelphia. And all of a sudden, the jet bridge, according to American, quote, malfunctioned, and I'm putting that in air quotes. And all of a sudden, it hits the door that's open, the boarding door, as it's supposed to be before you board, and it rips the door off the airplane. Now, I can tell you, I'm not an aeronautical engineer. My father-in-law is, but I can tell you that it takes a great deal of force to hit a door that hard to rip it off of an airplane, and the door just falls to the ground. And thank God nobody got hurt. But the other situation is those jet bridges, and for people that fly a lot, you see them, it's like they're really slow to the airplane. They're in sloth mode. So how something like this happened that violent is going to be very interesting to see, because I can tell you it, you know, again, fortunately there were no injuries. The airplane was obviously toast. It was going to take maintenance quite a bit of time to fix the door. So you had people that were, you know, stuck until the next day, and then they were able to catch their flight back to Philadelphia. But everybody that operates a jet bridge has to be what we call checked out. They have to be trained, and it has to be part of your personnel file. So one of the things that American Airlines, who lost a lot of money on this delay, is going to look at is, was the individual operating the jet bridge qualified to do so? If not, the bill for all of this is going to land on somebody else's desk.
Wow. Okay, that's a big deal. And so when this stuff happens, is there like a report that comes out after that kind of shows what went wrong, or is that something that the public typically sees, or not really?
Well, most of the time we don't. Now, if somebody got hurt, there is the National Transportation Safety Board would get involved, and then there would be an investigation and a subsequent report. Most of the time, this is an internal situation that management within American Airlines will see, they will review, they will take the necessary action. But when it comes to the public, no. But, you know, in this day of, you know, social media, instant pictures, that door no sooner hit the ground, probably was still rocking back and forth before all these pictures are being taken of what's going on. So It's social media, and many times the airline, such as American Airlines, you're kind of forced to respond. You're kind of forced to say what happened, because people that only hear half the story are going to think this door opened and then all of a sudden, woof, it just fell off. Well, it didn't fall off. So American Airlines is going to issue some sort of a statement. The one they gave us, they hope will work, that there was a malfunction of the jet bridge. It may have been a malfunction of the person operating it. We don't know. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the bottom line here is hopefully we can learn from what happened so that we can prevent it from happening again. But the other issue is, quite frankly, that a lot of this stems from people getting in a hurry and trying to do too much, or someone trying to operate the jet bridge probably that wasn't qualified to do so. And when that happens, really bad things take place, where we have what we call aircraft damage, and it turns that silver revenue tube into a great big billboard that's going to take several days to get fixed and back in the air.
Yeah, and a lot of upset passengers that are not able to take their flight on time. I know that's one of my pet peeves.
I mean, all I see is this little 6-year-old kid going, "Mommy, is the door supposed to be down there on the ground?" And yeah, no, it's not. And so when you see that, I mean, you immediately head to American Airlines ticket counter and say, "I'm going to have to be rerouted here. Get me onto something quick." Because American has other hubs. They have hubs through Charlotte. They have hubs through Chicago. This flight was destined to Philadelphia. The issue, of course, is we're dealing with a summer travel season that is busy as it's ever been. It was on Friday, the 30th of June, the TSA tells us, Brittany, that we had more people flying that day, almost 9 million people, than we've ever had before. So that is a new record that we have seen as far as the most number of people traveling in the course of a day. And that is with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of airplanes parked that aren't being used because we don't have enough pilots. So we're setting boarding records on thousands of fewer flights than what we normally have. And that is a very, very impressive feat.
Wow. It's crazy that it runs as smoothly as it does with all of the problems the shortages that we're seeing in the airline industry.
That's very insightful, because it's a lot like a piece of mail. If you can see what happened to the piece of mail from the time it left your house to went to where it goes, gets sorted, and then delivered, you'd be amazed anything ever makes it. And it's kind of the same thing with luggage and even passengers. When you look at what we call the flow chart of the aircraft, the 4 or 5 stops it has in the course of the day, the few minutes it's each destination, all the things that have to happen to remove the cargo, the luggage, the passengers, the freight, the mail, clean the aircraft, turn the airplane, refuel it, maintenance check, and boom, out it goes. It's something that is choreographed in such a way that it is a very, very challenging task for airlines to do on an ongoing basis. And I can tell you, most of the time, they do an excellent job, even in times of inclement weather. They tend to do a pretty good job.
Yeah, I've been very lucky in my travels, so I'm very grateful for everything happening on time, and I haven't lost any luggage yet, thank goodness. But
there's the two things on that, is that we always want to make sure that we try to book the first flight out of the day. That helps our chances of being on time. And you mentioned luggage. The best thing to do on a piece of luggage is the last thing that you should pack is a copy of your itinerary, and put the itinerary inside your luggage. That way, if all the tags come off and an airline representative is forced to open the bag to see who it belongs to, boom, there's a copy of your itinerary. They know where you're at, and they can get the bag back to you quickly.
That's really smart, Jay, and really great advice that I will be taking you up on.
I hope you write it all down.
Yes, I did. And okay, I have to touch on this really quick before we go. Why was the United flight diverted because of a meal? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, the first class. Okay, this is a United Airlines flight to set the stage, flying from Houston to Amsterdam. I think it's an 11-hour flight or so.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's what my 60-year-old memory tells me, but it's a long flight. So normally what happens is, if you have a first class or business class reservation, the airline will send you an email a few days beforehand, and they will ask you, what's your meal of choice? What would you like? We have this offer, this offer, this offer, and this offer. And you pick the one you want. Now, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get it, but they want to make sure they try to accommodate you if they can. So if you have chicken or a vegetarian dish, they're only going to have so much of each, and they'll ask you ahead of time, and then they'll place the appropriate number of meals on board the flight. Well, this United flight takes off to Amsterdam, and this passenger did not get the meal he thought he was supposed to have. So he starts throwing a little temper tantrum, much like Kevin in Home Alone, jumping up and down on the bed. And all of a sudden now you have a situation where, okay, the whole plane is in disruption, and they actually had to declare an emergency where they were going to divert to Chicago, which was a city they were near, and they landed to get this individual off the airplane. Now, some of the issues here that we were facing is there was so much fuel on this aircraft. Technically, from an operational standpoint, it was still too heavy to land. So they had to circle and burn off some fuel, even dumped some fuel. Now, don't think of it as dumping like you have a bucket on top of a porch and you're dumping something down on your little brother or sister on the ground. This is a mist that comes out that evaporates long before it gets to the ground. But the plane, it takes time, and they land and they pull to the gate, they get the person off. They have to perhaps refuel the airplane a bit, and then they're on their way to Amsterdam. It delayed everybody by 3 hours because one person. Now, look, we don't know why they were in this state of mind. Look, it could have been, and I used to tell my agents at Northwest Airlines all the time, we don't know why people are traveling. It could be the worst day of their life. They may have just gotten news their child died, their parent died, a relative is on life support, whatever it might happen to be. And anything could set them off, even something as trivial as a meal. So what we have to do is be in a position that we try to absorb it, don't try to react, don't try to make the situation worse. But sometimes people are just, and many times alcohol is involved, they become so problematic that it's difficult to contain the situation. And as a flight crew, the captain has to decide, okay, am I going to allow this person to remain on the plane as we go over the water, where if it escalates, there's no place to land? No, I'm going to land, we're going to get them off the airplane, and then we're going to continue. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to hear it, especially if you're on the flight. It's going to delay things, but that's what takes place. And what will probably happen, and this is more me hoping it than is United may send this guy a bill that says, look, it cost us $18,000 to make that unscheduled stop. It was your fault. Here's the bill. You're never going to fly American Airlines again. And here's your $18,000 bill that we expect paid by whatever date. And that type of things happened many, many times before. And I suspect that may happen. And also keep in mind, if you have business people on this flight, they're on their way to Amsterdam for the meeting of their life. They arrive late. The meeting gets canceled. They lose the sale. Who do you think they're going to sue? Right back to court. And they're going to brag this person in because that individual was directly responsible for that flight being late. So there's a lot of legal ramifications when people act up like this. And this guy could spend the next 10 years fighting various things in court.
Well, but I also think that, especially when it comes to the airlines, I've seen stuff that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. Just people don't care about the other people on the plane. It's all about them. So, hopefully people can learn some lessons of politeness and respectfulness when they get on these flights.
You will never hear me, either talking to you or Bill, ever use the words, well, I've seen it all, because no, we have not. We had a lady the other day that ran off of an American Airlines flight screaming she didn't want to fly because the guy next to her wasn't real. And she told everybody on the plane, if you stay on this flight, you're going to die. So, that's why I'll never have the arrogance to say I've seen it all, because when you're dealing with people, be it alcohol, any other thing of influence, or just whatever, you'll never hear me say I've seen it all, because every single day something's going to happen where you're going to say, what? And we continue to see it.
Yes, we do. And if people want to follow you, Jay, where can they catch the latest on the airlines?
The best thing they can do is get a hold of me through my business website at jratliff.com. That's just JAYratliff.com. And especially if you have a situation with an airline where you've complained to the airline, which is a waste of time, by the way, the best thing to do is always use DOT.gov, the Department of Transportation, to get the attention on your complaint that it deserves. So if you have any issues with a current or past issue with an airline, reach out to me and I'll do everything I can.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jay, and we'll see you next week.
A pleasure was mine. Thank you.
Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a ride.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934 with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Wrapping up another great week. And Brittany, I feel so much more enlightened this morning now that I know what AI stands for and that it's 2 letters. Thank you to the Vice President of the United States for explaining that all to me.
I'm telling you, I'm going to have to get the clip of them just posing the Veep Vice President and Kamala Harris. Their speeches sound very similar. I'm wondering if that's where they're pulling from. It's unbelievable.
I mean, you would think we have speech writers, so maybe it's her writers that are stupid.
Or maybe they don't do any work, so they just copy the script from Veep.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
I've missed Veep, so I'll have to go look it up.
I've never actually watched the show. I just know that it's like kind of a spoof on the Vice President. Which it was interesting. It was popular probably 5 years ago, I would say.
All right.
But never watched it myself. But just watching the 2 side by side, I was like, wow, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. But, you know, we've been dealing with the weaponization of the FBI for, I don't know, a few years. And Christopher Wray is probably, he's been a horrible director of the FBI. Without
a doubt. And can lie with the straightest face, because he was lying yesterday. If he didn't know any of this stuff, if he's said that, if he's totally unaware of what his agents are doing in the field, he actually justified the Mar-a-Lago raid that was totally unnecessary. He justified some of the other raids that have gone on. For example, when other people had been arrested, a guy who had defended his family or his son at a Planned Parenthood event.
Yep.
And they show up on a Sunday morning at his house and threaten him and his family. If he doesn't know that this is going on, because it has made the news, then this guy is pathetic.
Well, and CNN was definitely having their own little meltdown about Jim Jordan and his questioning of the FBI director.
The Communist News Network strikes again.
You think priests should be informants inside the church, Director?
We do not
recruit, open, or operate confidential human sources to infiltrate, target, report.
But that's not what this said. It sounds like you were trying to do it in Richmond, Virginia.
No, sir.
Yeah, listen, I mean, this is part of essentially sort of two Americas, right? The Republican version of the FBI is that it is a weaponized agency, that they are going after Catholics, that they are going after parents who are complaining at school boards. And you see, as a result of that, people who are campaigning for president saying they're going to defund the FBI, that they are going to fire all the officers and sort of build it from the ground up. This is a result, as you said before, of sort of Donald Trump's America, weaponizing the idea that the FBI is out to get average Americans, particularly going after Republicans and conservatives.
But God forbid there be an actual like domestic terror event or something where the credibility of the FBI is important for all Americans across partisan lines to have trust in the institution. I mean, that's the real risk here. The risk is that it's going to be more difficult to recruit people to join and stay in the FBI, that it's going to be more difficult for Americans to have confidence and faith in the FBI's work when there really is something of an urgent matter that involves the protection of all Americans. Matt Gaetz, you played the clip talking about how Wray has less credibility than Hoover. I mean, that's probably percentage-wise technically true for a couple of reasons. Every institution in America, from the press to the Supreme Court to the military, is under stress, but also Republicans are actively campaigning to undermine the credibility of the FBI.
Absolutely. And look, I just want to say that it is the job of the United States Congress to have oversight.
Right.
And there are questions. I mean, Wray admitted that there was a mistake made in the Richmond office when they deal with the Catholic Church. But the question is, kind of, is everything at an 11, to quote Spinal Tap?
What did she say? What did she say at the end?
Is everything at 11?
Okay.
So, meaning, does everything meet the same criteria of being? Do they deserve all the criticism they're getting? I think is where she was going with that, because I think she's saying, yeah, he admitted there's some problems here, but like nothing's perfect, right? I mean, they make mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like at CNN, they hired a new CEO to try to to make things a little better and to be a little more fair and balanced, so to speak. Not to steal the phrase from Fox News, but and he brings in and he organized that to the town hall with Donald Trump, and then they fired him.
They're not looking for ratings.
No, they're not, because they had quadrupled the ratings in that time period than they've ever had before. And it's just, and they fire the guy, and you have what's his name, Anderson.
Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper, yeah, Anderson Cooper, 328, going up, just getting his knees bloody, begging the audience for forgiveness for having Donald Trump on.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and the only reason they were mad about it is because Donald Trump is actually very likable.
Yeah.
When you get people laughing and stuff, and you see people enjoying themselves during a town hall like that, they were like, "What did we do?"
Yeah, and also taking their reporter head to the cleaners,
which her show failed. It's a big flop. Didn't do it. I think it just aired this week and didn't do too well. So congratulations, CNN, on another failure.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Yeah, Steve Statton says her Kamala Harris speechwriters were hired by Donald Trump. I think that's hilarious. Lizzie Warren, these people hated the FBI when Trump was POTUS. And Mary McCann Hybrider says, didn't Garland call parents at BOE meetings domestic terrorists?
Yeah, he did. And so the proof is in the pudding. And all. What about all this defunding the police and what goes on there of telling people that we don't need police anymore? We'll just send a social worker over to settle the dispute.
Yes. Well, and the thing I loved about yesterday, Matt Gaetz is one of my favorites. He always does a great job of questioning, and he had some questions for Christopher Wray.
Yeah.
American people need to understand what just happened. My Democrat colleague just asked the director of the FBI whether or not they are buying information about our fellow Americans, and the answer is, well, we'll just have to get back to you on that. It sounds really complicated, but I have other questions. I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI
Well,
does not and has no interest in
You won't answer the
protecting
question
anyone
about whether or not
politically.
that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you.
Matt Gaetz is quite the firebrand.
Yeah, boy.
And I love watching him question people because he is on it.
Does his homework.
Well, the other thing that kind of came up yesterday was the fact that it kind of sounds like Biden may be under investigation in Delaware. So,
No.
I know everyone that watches the show is really surprised about a lot of the things we talk about, since we were aware of this 3 years ago. But, I think it's interesting that it's now on primetime television. You can see it on C-SPAN, and these viral clips that go out to social media, they do make a difference. So although no one's watching C-SPAN all day, these clips are getting out, and I think it's really important.
For sure. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. We've done as much damage as we can this week. If we haven't offended anybody, then we haven't done our job.
Yeah, I'm sure that someone is mad, but we'll be making people mad all next week. So please tune in. Remember to download our app, The Local Spin. You can also catch us on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts.
Have a great weekend.